When it comes to deploying Windows 10, it's important to understand that there's a lot of ways you can go about it. There's a lot of different tools that you can utilize and different methods that can actually get Windows 10 installed out in your environment. So we're going to take a look at some of the different capabilities that we have there and methods that we would use. So to start with, we're going to just break down some of the different deployments. The first type of deployment you have is called a fresh install. This is also sometimes referred to as a high touch installation, HTI. I've also heard it referred to as an HTD, high touch deployment. So the idea of a high touch installation is this is sort of just like a traditional, I'm going to go get a copy of Windows 10 on a DVD and put it in my computer, and I'm going to install from there. And just we're there and we baby the entire computer through the install the whole entire time. And as you can imagine, if you were trying to do a lot of computers that way, this is going to take a very long time. If my boss walked up to me and said, hey, I need you to deploy 50 new computers as quickly as possible, running around with 50 DVDs is probably not going to be the fastest way to do it. Of course, another option would be having Windows 10 on a flash drive and running around and putting flash drives in with Windows 10 and installing that way. Again, that's a high-touch installation. That's going to take you a long time to go through, and it wouldn't be a very pleasant thing to do if you had to do a bunch of computers at one time. Now, if I'm just doing one computer and, it's my own computer and I don't have what's known as imaging set up, then yeah, we can do it. We can get it done. It's not going to take too long to do one computer, but if you had to do a bunch of computers, that's where things get interesting. Then you've got imaging. Okay, so imaging is going to use different tools to do this, and the first style of imaging is called a light touch installation, LTI, okay, or also LTD, light touch deployment. Now, with that, you're going to download something called the Windows ADK, the Windows Assessment and Deployment Toolkit, and then there's also something called the MDT, the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. Both of these are free. The Windows ADK comes with a whole bunch of tools that allow us to control the deployment process, and the MDT is sort of a little workbench that we can graphically sit at and deal with all of our deployment assets in one place. I'm going to talk more about both of these coming up here. The light touch installation, though, is going to let us deploy a bunch of computers at one time, but we are going to have to put our hands on the keyboards, right? We're going to have to power the computers up, put our hands on the keyboard, select a few options, and then away it will go. We can definitely do things faster this way than if we were to try to do a high-touch installation. So if I was installing 50 computers, for example, I could definitely go through this route a lot faster, okay? Now, if you've got the money, you can actually utilize what is known as a zero-touch installation. So this is imaging using the MDT, the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, and SCCM, System Center Configuration Manager, okay? In the 1990s, there used to be a product called SMS, and then eventually in the early 2000s, they renamed it to SCCM, System Center Configuration Manager. Keep in mind that they'll also just refer to this product as Configuration Manager. Now, SCCM is a paid product. You have to purchase it. It's a licensed product. It's very advanced. There's a lot to it. Okay, Microsoft actually has 5-day courses just on this one product, so that should tell you a little something about it. It's a big deal. Lot to learn there, but very, very powerful. One of the powerful features that SCCM comes with is the ability to achieve what is called zero-touch installation. Okay, zero-touch installation means that I can set up an SCCM server along with having Windows ADK MDT, and there's another service we're going to talk about, Windows Deployment Service, that will control the entire deployment process. So I could actually schedule a deployment to begin on a Friday after hours for these 50 new computers, and no joke, SCCM can do wake on LAN, where it will actually wake computers up, deploy the operating system down to it, update, deploy the applications, join it to your domain, activate it, and then shut the things down before Monday. So you could set these computers up on a Friday, come in on a Monday, and they're all ready to go. So it's very, very powerful, okay? And then, of course, there's Autopilot. You may remember me mentioning Autopilot in one of the previous lectures. So Autopilot is a cloud-based feature. This is not really deploying an image. The idea of autopilot is we can purchase a bunch of computers from somebody like Dell or some other OEM, choose an OEM, an original equipment manufacturer, basically a computer vendor. We can purchase these computers, and if we know what the hardware ID, the device ID is, which is like the serial number of the computer, we can actually associate that with our Microsoft Cloud service, and autopilot can install, configure things on that machine. Mostly what's going to happen is you're going to put the machines in place, turn them on. They're going to automatically connect to the cloud if they have an internet connection during the out-of-box experience, OOBE. Autopilot is going to control that out-of-box experience, and then it'll be joined to our cloud, and we can have software deployed via this thing called Intune down to those machines. Updates, applications, configuration settings, all that. This is considered a modern approach to deployment, whereas the imaging is more of a traditional approach, and fresh install is considered a traditional approach. Autopilot is considered a modern approach, and it uses the cloud, and that's going to be one thing to try to keep in your head about it. Okay, the last thing we got there is in-place upgrade. An in-place upgrade is where you upgrade an older operating system to Windows 10. For example, I'm upgrading from Windows 7 directly to Windows 10 or 8.8.1 directly to Windows 10. That is what an in-place upgrade is. So the great thing about an in-place upgrade is you don't lose any applications or any of that that's installed on the computer. You keep all of that in place, and it just upgrades you straight to Windows 10. The downside to doing an in-place upgrade is if any of the applications that are existing on the older operating system have problems, those problems can make their way into Windows 10. Let's take a deeper look now at the Windows ADK. Okay, so the Windows ADK is something that you can go out and you can download. You can get it from Microsoft's web download website, and it's going to come with a bunch of tools. This Windows ADK is not really a new thing. It used to be called Wake, okay, back when Windows Vista and early days of 7 came out, and then eventually they renamed it to Windows ADK. So, all right, so it used to be the Wake, a Windows Automated Installation Kit, and it got renamed to Windows ADK. The only reason I tell you that is be careful, because you could see some references to the older package, especially if you're taking the exam. You could see references to the older name for it, and the newer name for it is Windows ADK, which is what you want to kind of have in your mind. So what do you get with the Windows ADK? Well, first thing you get is ACT. ACT is the Application Compatibility Toolkit, and ACT will allow you to basically check applications that are installed on existing operating systems. Imagine this. Imagine I've got a bunch of Windows 7 computers or Windows 8 computers that need to be upgraded to Windows 10. But what we're afraid of is perhaps maybe that those applications may not be compatible with Windows 10. I can use ACT to scan all of those computers in my network and tell me if they're running applications that are not compatible. Now, in some cases, you can even deploy these little patches called shims that can fix little compatibility problems, so that when you actually do the upgrade to Windows 10, you will have fixed all those little problems ahead of time. So ACT is a really powerful tool, really helpful tool, and it's free. It comes with Windows ADK. Now, we also have USMT, User State Migration Tool. We're going to talk more about this one too a little bit later. And USMT is used for migration. So this is great for if I've got a user who has, maybe they got an older computer, and maybe we're getting them a new computer and it's going to have Windows 10 on it. Maybe we want to back up all their stuff. So this is going to, user state migration is going to back up all their user stuff. It's going to use a tool called ScanState. It's going to back all their stuff up, and then at that point we can install Windows 10 on a new computer perhaps, and then we can do a load state which will restore all their stuff down. So that's another very helpful tool. It is a command line tool, so there's some commands you have to understand when you do that. We have DISM, Deployment Imaging, Servicing, and Management. This is the tool that's going to actually let us capture and deploy images for Windows 10. When we go through the process of capture and deployment of images, DISM is going to be the tool that's going to let us do that. DISM is going to run inside of an environment called Windows PE. We have VAMPed, Volume Activation Manager tool or management tool. This tool allows us to scan all of our copies of Windows that's out in our environment, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, and it's going to tell us which machines are activated. I can also remotely activate machines using that command. I've got ICD, Imaging and Configuration Designer. This is a newer tool that was released when Windows 10 first came out, and this is a tool that creates these little things called provisioning packages. Provisioning packages are these little XML files that you can send to a Windows 10 computer, and the Windows 10 computer will reconfigure itself based on what's in the provisioning package. For example, if I wanted to configure a VPN on a computer, I could create a little provisioning package that does that, and I can deploy that provisioning package out to those computers, and they would configure that VPN on their machine. I could do a bunch of computers at one time, or I could do a single computer if I wanted to. Then you got UEV. Now, I've mentioned that one before. That's User Experience Virtualization. This is going to let you jump between computers, and your settings will follow you where you go. You have AppV. Talked about that one a little bit in a previous lecture as well. That allows you to virtualize applications, containerize applications. We have performance and assessment tools. These are some tools to help us gather some metrics and analytics about the performance data in our environment. I have Windows PE. Now, I mentioned this one on this slide because I want to make sure people are aware of the changes. So in previous versions of Windows ADK, Windows PE was included. This is the pre-installation environment. This environment is actually a copy of Windows that purely runs in command line, okay? And this particular capability is an environment that I can deploy. It's very lightweight. I could run it on a flash drive. I could run it on even a CD if it's light enough, but DVD, and it can even be deployed through a service called Windows Deployment Services that I'm going to talk about. But what's great about it is this is the environment I can put a computer in when I want to capture an image or I want to deploy an image. But the key thing to know here is that this is no longer part of the Windows ADK. I put it in the list, but you're going to notice that it says now a separate download. The reason I did that is because a lot of people with experience are going to wonder why Windows ADK or Windows PE isn't there anymore. Well, Microsoft has decided to make it a separate download. So this is a separate download now. By downloading the Windows ADK, you don't get Windows PE, but you can do it from a separate download screen. Okay. The last tool I want to talk about right now in this little lecture is MDT. This is the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. This is also a separate thing. This is not part of the Windows ADK. And they call this their visual workbench. And the goal of the MDT is it's sort of a graphical tool you can go into, and you can keep all of the assets involved in dealing with images. You can point to all of your images, all your image files. You can point to application files, drivers. You can even create these little things called task sequences that are going to assist you in automating the process of deployment. For example, for me to deploy an image, one of the first things that's got to happen is I got to partition the disk. It's got to be partitioned and then formatted, and then I can start deploying the image. You can use task sequences to automate that process. So the MDT, again, this is free, a free download. You just go out there to Microsoft's downloads and you can download MDT and install it, and it's going to sort of help you oversee the process of working with deployment.